This is another video about brushes in Illustrator. As we discussed in a couple of the other videos, there are various types of brushes in Illustrator, 5 actually, different types. Lots and lots of different kinds of brushes, of course. We could make brushes out of almost anything. And so you could have, a brush look like a million different things. But there are 5 different types of brushes. What I mean by that is that we have calligraphic brushes. These are these ones right here. Then we have scatter brushes. I've made this scatter brush in one of the previous videos to make these stars, so it scatters objects along a path. The next set of brushes are art brushes, and we've made an art brush like this rainbow art brush right here. But any of these are also art brushes. And then we have bristle brushes, which, like the calligraphic brushes, are not based off of you dragging something into the brushes panel. They're based on you adjusting settings. And then lastly, we have these border brushes. So for the border brushes, I'm gonna go over making this particular border. And if you go to the libraries down here, under brushes, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of different brushes we can get. If we go down to the section where it says borders, you'll see there's a bunch of different border brushes in here. So if we went to borders decorative, for instance, we'd have all of these brushes. And bear in mind that you can edit any of these. You could take them, drag them out, change the color, put them back in, and so on. But we're just going to look at making a new border brush. The way that a border brush works is it basically creates a tile, so that each of the things that you're creating, like this brush that we're making right here, if I was to look at the way that this brush is made by dragging this out, I actually only made this tile. This part is automatically being generated by Illustrator. So this enables us to create corners like these here. In very early versions, or going back quite a few versions anyway, you would actually have to make your own corners and drag them in there to make it. But now it generates several different options for what the corner could look like. So I'm going to go over building this, and then we'll make it into a brush. So first of all, I'm going to begin with the spiral tool, and I'm going to drag out. When you drag out with the spiral tool, remember, you can use the up arrow to add curves, or you could use the down arrow to take them away. You can also use the command key to expand the spiral out or close it up. So I'm going to end up with something around about here. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to add this brush stroke to it, this shape profile to it. Once I've got to that point, I'm going to make a duplicate of this. So to make a duplicate of this, we could reflect this over itself. Let's make this a little bit thicker. There we go. So I'm going to reflect this over itself, set it to vertical and hit copy. So I option click on this point. I'll do that one more time because I kind of skipped that step pretty quickly. But when you first choose the reflect tool, by default, if you select an object and choose the reflect tool, the crosshair, this bit right here, is right in the center of the object. That's what's referred to as the point of origin. So if you reflect it, it would end up doing that. Now what I want it to do is to reflect over this position right here. So if I hold option and click on it, I get this dialog box, and I can choose to set it to vertical and then hit copy. That looks pretty good. Okay, so next I'm going to draw a line with the line segment tool, which goes just above these two, right through the middle and just below. I'm going to get rid of this shape profile. I'm going to change the shape profile to uniform. And then right at the very top of here, I'm going to use the rectangle tool to draw a square, which I'm going to make a fill. And I'm going to rotate by dragging it like that, holding shift so it constrains it. So this is now at a 45-degree angle, and we'll position one here and one here. And then on the top one, actually, I'm going to extend it a little bit. I'm going to have it be more like that. Once I've got to that point, I'm going to select all these objects. I need to move it just a little bit so we can add these other additional lines. So we're going to add an additional line now. With the line segment tool, I'm going to start over here. You see this smart guide? is indicating when I'm right up against the edge of the design that's already there. So if I drag across holding shift and I touch on the opposite side, now we've got a line which is the same length as the design, and I'm going to eyedropper this stroke. Let's put this right next to it and bring another one up. And then this one I'm going to make a little bit thinner. So let's make this one 1-point stroke. And we'll select these two. Let's put this one a little bit closer. Select these two and then reflect it over the center of this by choosing the reflect tool, holding option, clicking in the center of this and then hitting copy. So when I copied it that time, I had it set to vertical, and actually I need to have it set to horizontal. So there we go. And I need to move it down a little bit more. Maybe about there. Just want to make sure I haven't got an extra copy there. Okay, so now I've got the design. It's a little too big for what I want, so I'm going to scale that. You want to make sure that when you scale it, scale, stroke and effects is turned on so that the stroke doesn't get thinner. Let's scale this about 30%. And then see what this looks like. So if I drag this now into the brushes panel, so it's actually this one over here, not the brush library, this one. Choose pattern brush this time and then press OK. When I do it, you can see it's creating a corner automatically, and if I click here we can choose from various other types of corners, but I'm actually going to leave it on that default one. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we can also make adjustments to this. So for instance, the colorization method right now is none, which means that regardless of what my stroke is here, this will always be black. Whereas if we set it to tints and press OK, now if we use this brush, so the one that I just made is this one down here, I believe. Now we've applied that brush. If I want to change the color of it now, it'll pick up the color because I changed this to tint. If it was left it on none, you'll see that it's black now. So by changing this to tints, it picks up the color which is in the tool panel in your stroke. Also, just like any of the other brushes, it's associated with the stroke weight, so you can make it a thinner stroke weight or a thicker stroke weight to adjust that. Here's another example where I simply made a railway track by dragging in this. So the corner, remember, is being created for me, and for the purposes of this that's not particularly useful anyway, because we're not going to have it do a hard corner. If it goes around a corner it'll bend a little bit, but this is all I needed. I just needed something which represents one tile within that whole railway line. And then that's what this is here, and you can see that when I select it, it's set to 0.25 of a point. This is why it's much smaller than this one is, but it's exactly the same graphic which is being repeated over and over again. So that's the border brush. Very useful. You can use that for a variety of treatments, for creating borders around graphics, or for creating things like railway tracks. Alright, there we go. Lots more fun with Illustrator to come. See you guys.